So when was the first time that you heard about Bitcoin, and how did you get it, and what made you start now? Whoa, I
Yeah.
need to explore Bitcoin.
Yes. So the first time I heard about Bitcoin is 2011. But that doesn't mean I actually got any Bitcoin. I just heard about it on I think it was the very first podcast where they discussed Bitcoin. It was Econ Talk with Russ Roberts. As I said, I'm a libertarian and I'm a fan of Austrian School of Economics. And that podcast was basically focused on these topics. So in 2011, they had, I think it was Gavin Anderson from the Bitcoin Foundation back then. And I just washed the dishes in the kitchen, listened to the podcast, and I thought yeah, that's pretty neat. And then I forgot about it for a couple of years. And and then I watched like Silk Road and the arrest of Ross and the collapse of Mt. Gox. So I were sort of aware about like Bitcoin and what was going on because it was interesting to me as a libertarian. But I finally got into Bitcoin when in Prague there was a conference called Hackers Congress in 2016, and Andreas Antonopoulos came and gave one of the most powerful talks I've ever been at. Andreas Antonopoulos is an old school like Bitcoin educator, great content on YouTube, and his books are really amazing, highly recommended. And so 2016 at that conference was the time when I started to get it, but I finally properly got what Bitcoin is about when I wrote my book. It's called Bitcoin Separation of Money and State, and I wrote that in summer 2020, and I basically convinced myself throughout writing that book that Bitcoin is the best shot of actually separating money and state and thus attaining the freedom from the state oppression.
And what advice would you give educators who wants to start educating Bitcoin in their communities?
Yeah, so first of all, when you're like explaining concepts to people, you should know like much more than what you're explaining, right? Because there's going to be questions and you should always like that level of knowledge should be like much deeper than what you're trying to instill on people. So that they understand you really know what you're talking about. So yeah, listen to Bitcoin podcasts, read Bitcoin books, use Bitcoin, on-chain Lightning, be familiar with hardware wallets, maybe be familiar with mining through like Bitex or mini miners, research what Gridless is doing, just follow the community, be part of the community, and then teaching comes very naturally to you, because if you're passionate about it and if you're very deep like in that topic, then usually you want to share what you know and what you feel with others. So the best teachers are those that don't do it like for money or for a position, but that just do it for the love of the knowledge that they possess.
So the biggest thing, community, is that let us build capacity, let us build knowledge. So in as much as we are doing whatever we are doing, let us build capacity. So hello guys, welcome to Beyond Adversity BTC Podcast. And guess who we have in the room? Trezor Academy. This is something that I don't take for granted, Joseph. And so our topic is all about Bitcoin education as a tool for freedom, like building grassroots adoption across the world.
Yeah.
And in our community, something that you've been requesting, you've been asking about Trezor Academy, because we do a lot of Bitcoin education. And my community has been asking about Trezor Academy, how can they tap in? And this is something that I believe you're going to bring it to you sooner than sooner. So before saying anything, I'd love to know, and they'd love to know, who is Joseph?
Yes.
Where does he come from? Like, general overview.
Of course, yeah. So hi. And my name is Josef Tětek. I'm from Czech Republic. Czech Republic is right next to Germany, Central Europe. Took me 2 flights to get here, almost 20 hours because I had to stay in Dubai for some reason. They delayed my flight, but I'm always so excited to come back to Africa. I've been coming to Africa since 2022, since the first Africa Bitcoin conference. I try to make it to all the major Bitcoin events that are happening on the continent. Trezor Academy is my project. Basically, Trezor Academy is one-man project, and I'm the man. But I mean, I wouldn't be able to do basically anything without the local Bitcoin educators across the continent. Also, we do some education in South America as well, but Africa is our main focus. So, but personally about me, I'm a Bitcoiner by heart, have been for 10 years now, and I'm also a libertarian, or we can say anarchist or voluntarist. I just love to see people be free, to retain that freedom, and I think Bitcoin and freedom are just two sides of the same coin.
Wow. I'm curious, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom for me is freedom from oppression, from being forced to hand over my hard-earned money. I'm definitely against taxation, against any kind of involuntary confiscation. That's like the financial side of freedom. You should be able to retain what you earn, because it's just your life energy that you put into something, and you should retain the fruits of that labor. And also the non-financial side of freedom is you should be able to say what you want. Freedom of speech is very important, and we see governments worldwide, even in the West, even the Western governments are attacking the freedom of speech in the Western Europe. So that's something I'm definitely trying to fight against. And you should be able to just marry whomever you want, raise your kids in a way that you'd like. I'm a fan of homeschooling, for example. And freedom for me is freedom from the state oppression.
Okay. So something that we always do at Beyond Adversity is that our notion is that we are trying to nurture resilient community. We are nurturing resilient communities. In as much as we are doing everything that we do, there must be adversities, like challenges. So at a personal level, what challenge did you go through and you felt like, whoa, this is kind of big, but then you found a way and you navigated through that? Not specifically on Bitcoin,
yes,
but at a personal level.
I understand. So, I mean, Czech Republic is a pretty chill place. So we don't have like natural disasters. Usually there have been some floods like 20 years ago. That's like the major disaster that we had, but nothing too bad happened actually. We don't have like venomous like insects and snakes and stuff. So it's a very nice place to live, very low crime rate. Even the taxation isn't that as bad as, for example, the Western Europe. So I don't really have like major issues in my life. And I'm happily married for 18 years almost now.
Congratulations.
But I mean, on the personal level, the thing I struggled with most was before I went into Bitcoin full time, like getting a Bitcoin job, working for Trezor and some other project before that. The issue was I worked for like classic like corporations, like 9 to 5, and it was a very unsatisfying life. So for me, the advice is just do what you feel, follow your heart. If you feel that you're not like satisfied in what you do, you should try to get closer to just fulfill your values in life. And the Bitcoin work did that for me, because instead of working for like a logistics company or what did we do, food, like a food company of type of food that I didn't even eat myself. It's a very unsatisfying mode of existence. So it's a very fulfilling if you can do a type of job that is aligned with your values. That's why I, for example, really love what B-Trust is doing on the continent, because it helps people to get a Bitcoin job,
Yeah.
and that's very powerful for the people that manage to do that.
Wow. Oh, I'm curious about this because when you were born, you didn't know maybe about Bitcoin. So basically, it must be that you found it in between when you are growing. So when was the first time that you heard about Bitcoin, and how did you get it, and what made you start now? Wow, I need to explore Bitcoin.
Yes. So the first time I heard about Bitcoin is 2011. But that doesn't mean I actually got any Bitcoin. I just heard about it on I think it was the very first podcast where they discussed Bitcoin. It was Econ Talk with Russ Roberts. As I said, I'm a libertarian and I'm a fan of Austrian School of Economics. And that podcast was basically focused on these topics. So in 2011, they had, I think it was Gavin Anderson from the Bitcoin Foundation back then. And I just washed the dishes in the kitchen, listened to the podcast, and I thought that's pretty neat. And then I forgot about it for a couple of years. And and then I watched Silk Road and the arrest of Ross and the collapse of Mt. So I were sort of aware about Bitcoin and what was going on because it was interesting to me as a libertarian. But I finally got into Bitcoin when in Prague there was a conference called Hackers Congress in 2016, and Andreas Antonopoulos came and gave one of the most powerful talks I've ever been at. Andreas Antonopoulos is an old school Bitcoin educator. Great content on YouTube, and his books are really amazing. Highly recommended. And so 2016 at that conference was the time when I started to get it, but I finally properly got what Bitcoin is about when I wrote my book. It's called Bitcoin: Separation of Money and State, and I wrote that in summer 2020. And I basically convinced myself throughout writing that book that Bitcoin is the best shot of actually separating money and state, and thus attaining the freedom from the state oppression.
Can you expand on that? How do we get to separate state money from Bitcoin, and how does it work?
So I believe the path to the separation of money and state is through grassroots adoption, not through lobbying the governments. I don't think that's going to work at all. We can see that even El Salvador, where Bitcoin was legal tender, it is not anymore because they had this strong pressure from the IMF and World Bank to basically get rid of that legislation. So I don't think the top down is the way. The way to truly adopt Bitcoin as money is bottom up, grassroots. That's what we are focused on with Trezor Academy. And you will there might be still a fiat currency in place officially, formally, but it will just be obsolete because people won't be using it anymore. And we can see sort of that happening in countries that went through hyperinflation, for example, like Zimbabwe. It basically became dollarized. So they might have still some sort of Zimbabwean dollar in place, but people don't actually think in Zimbabwean dollars, but they think in USD. And I believe over time, it's going to take time, but over time, people will start thinking in sets and just using Bitcoin as a everyday money. And that's how we separate money from the state.
All right. So why did you get to choose Trezor Academy? And what problem were you trying to solve?
So I founded Trezor Academy after I talked to Alex Gladstein from the Human Rights Foundation. And Alex, he wrote the book called Check Your Financial Privilege. He published that, I believe, back in 2022. I've read that book and it resonated with me very strongly because, as I said, I've always been a libertarian and always were looking for the ways to increase the liberty of mankind. That sounds ambitious. And just reading that book, it finally clicked Bitcoin, this is it for, and it's for everybody. It's not just for us in a privileged like Czech Republic and Western states, countries, but it is actually for everybody. And Alex in that book captures the stories of people from Africa, Middle East, Cuba, Venezuela, from oppressive governments, people living under oppressive governments, and how Bitcoin basically saves them. So that was my initial motivation to get somehow involved in Bitcoin adoption in the global south and in the, let's say, unprivileged countries, as Alex says. So I just proposed the idea to the company, to the founders of Trezor, and they liked it. So we like figured out what would be the best way to actually do it, and over time we found out that the best way to provide proper Bitcoin education in the global south is through local educators, because they can explain Bitcoin in a way that connects with the local. So if we are running the Trezor Academy program in Botswana, for example, I need someone that has been living in Botswana all their life for a very long time and understands the community and understands what problems the people face and how Bitcoin helps.
Yeah, when we're talking about the local communities, like the grassroots communities, you find that there is a way they have a culture in there. There is a way their mindset is.
Yes.
So how do Trezor Academy change mindset? Because changing mindset is kind of hard.
Yeah.
Because it involves like unlearning the things that they've known. So
yeah. So as I said, it's really dependent on the local educator, and he needs to understand what specific problem can Bitcoin solve in that community. So that is one example from Botswana is Josh is our educator in Botswana. And part of the group that came to the Trezor Academy meetups, there was a lady of Cuban heritage. She comes from Cuba, lives in Botswana now, and she was looking for ways to send money to her relatives on the island, on the Cuban island. And as you can imagine, it's probably very hard to send money from Botswana to Cuba. It's hard to send money to Cuba from any place, but from Botswana, I guess like there's no real remittance corridor. It's a very like specific setup. So Josh got in touch with our educator in Cuba, because we run the program in Cuba as well. Because Josh also didn't know how to off-ramp Bitcoin in Cuba into like the local fiat currency, because that's what the family needs. So they talked, they figured it out. Josh knows how to on-ramp to Bitcoin in Botswana. Of course, it's very simple to send the sats to someone in Cuba, and the Cuban educator knew how to off-ramp that Bitcoin into the local fiat currency. And that lady, like, she was so happy about that. So, I mean, it's not really about changing the mindset as such, because that changes naturally once you solve an actual problem with Bitcoin. Then people will get it. People will get that it's real, it's not a scam, it actually improves their lives, and that's just how you do it.
Wow. Tell me the biggest misconception that you've had about Bitcoin.
So, as part of Trezor Academy, so the biggest like misconception or obstacle is just this skepticism that it actually works, that it's not a scam. It's sometimes, I guess it feels like it's too good to be true that we do like these kind of meetups where there's like refreshment and it's free to attend. And so people just have this, they think there must be a catch, that we're trying to sell them something, or that we are going to ask them for money, that it's like some kind of investment scheme. So that's also why you need to run it through trusted locals that have like a local reputation, so they understand they're not trying to take advantage of them. Because I believe like in some places that we run the program in, like in the townships, for example, it doesn't really happen that you have like some meetups free to attend. You will get food, and nobody will like ask you for anything. They will only ask you. I always say, the program is free. The only thing you have to pay is attention, right? They only have to pay attention. So, and we need to overcome this initial skepticism, and because it is actually as good as it sounds. Like you will learn about an instrument that can really improve your life.
I need us to talk about like self-custody and freedom. What do you think? We must talk about the self-custody, because I do have I saw the Trezor hardware wallet, and the idea is all about self-custody. So what will you say about that?
So in order to actually capture all the benefits of Bitcoin, you need to own the keys. You need to manage the funds yourself.
Not your keys, not your coins.
Not your keys, not your coins, precisely. Because if you are on an exchange, the privacy side is like the monster that's like hiding behind below the under the bed. But that aside, if you only have like Bitcoin on an exchange, you only have the price exposure. That's it. You don't capture any other benefits of Bitcoin, because that exchange can take that funds away from you. Your account can be hacked. The exchange can collapse. And you cannot freely send it to anyone in the world, or not as easily. So you need to take possession. You need to treat it basically as a physical cash in your pocket. You need to have it under full control. It's a big responsibility. Of course, you can make mistakes, but if you use like proper tooling, like the hardware wallets, like Trezor, a lot of the like initial obstacles were basically ironed out over the years. Trezor has been around since 2013, so 13 years now. So the usability and the understandability of what you're actually doing while you're managing your Bitcoin is very high at this point. But yeah, definitely, if you want to use Bitcoin as your money, you need to have that self-custody aspect. Yes.
And guys, we are on the Bitcoin Nairobi conference that is happening in Nairobi right now, and something that I'd really love to hear from you. What excites you about Bitcoin adoption in Africa?
So what excites me is that Bitcoin in Africa is often understood as actual money and is used as actual money. And not just by people that are like middle class or higher up, but even like in the poorest regions like Kibera here in Nairobi, there's a big Bitcoin community, and I'm very excited to visit tomorrow, where we're going to do like the walk in Kibera and just see how Bitcoin is used. Because you don't really see Bitcoin circular economies in the West. We have none in Czech Republic or Europe. Or there is one in Europe, actually, in Netherlands, but I haven't been there. Bitcoin in the West is understood as a savings technology. There's nothing wrong about it. That just serves the use case that people, that's the most like pressing issue for the people in the West, because we don't really need Bitcoin for payments. The fiat payment mechanisms work very well in the West. But in Africa, they usually don't. It usually doesn't work that well. You have cash, and oftentimes that's it. You don't have any means of digital payments. So what is really exciting for me is to witness this like massive explosion of Bitcoin adoption as a day-to-day payment mechanism. And I love to just share those insights with Bitcoiners in the West who are willing to listen, because it fills me with a really great optimism that we actually can separate the money from the state. And a lot of people in the West, a lot of Bitcoiners in the West have sort of like lost that hope, lost that vision, because they only see like MicroStrategy and these like corporate treasuries and Trump talking about Bitcoin. It's not really that exciting, frankly.
Wow.
What is exciting is seeing like township kids using Bitcoin to buy a bottle of juice. That's really exciting for me.
Wow. So what role do grassroots initiatives play in shaping the future of Bitcoin globally?
Sorry, what was that again?
What role do grassroots initiatives play in shaping the Bitcoin adoption?
Oh, I
globally?
think it's probably the most important aspect of Bitcoin adoption. Without the grassroots adoption, there's almost no adoption. Because, I mean, as I said, like the corporate treasury stuff, they don't even self-custody. Like they use custodians for that. And they don't use Bitcoin for payments or for... for anything basically. They just like hold it and sit on it, and they don't really even hold it themselves. You need Bitcoin. You need this like stress tests of Bitcoin being used by millions of people daily, because that's where you see like how it actually works, not just in theory but in practice. When people without smartphones, for example, need to use Bitcoin, and we got Machankura for that now. When the kids without any phones need to use Bitcoin, you will have the NFC cards, like we see in Bitcoin at the Bitcoin Akasi, and we basically see like this pioneering of Bitcoin being used as a medium of exchange, mostly in Africa. It's not like the US or Europe where this like most exciting development is happening. It's in Africa. There's stuff like Tando, Machankura, and many other projects. And I think it's just the most important development right now in Bitcoin.
And when you came to Kenya, what did you find like exciting that maybe you never saw before? Yeah,
that's definitely the Tando project. The very fact that M-Pesa, like the local mobile money, is used by 98% of the population, as I heard today in the morning. And Tando lets you pay any M-Pesa account holder with Bitcoin. It's just mind-blowing that you can actually live on Bitcoin without any issues in Kenya through Tando. So that is like really mind-blowing. And when I tell my friends in Czech Republic, like my fellow Bitcoiners about it, they like have no clue that this is happening, and they get excited. That's as I said, like bringing these insights from Africa back to Czechs and like Western Bitcoiners, it fills us with like hope and optimism that some of the Bitcoiners have been losing over the years.
Yeah, big shout out to Tando and Bitika. They give us the opportunity to live on the Bitcoin standard in Kenya. And so something that I love to know as an educator from Kenya, how can an educator tap into Trezor Academy?
Yeah, so the best way is basically if we meet at events like these, because we got a lot of applications over the years, and the best way for me to understand like how the potential local educators like think about Bitcoin and education is just to meet and chat, exchange at least a couple of sentences in person, or to have that recommendation from someone I actually already partner with, I already work with. So yeah, just don't be afraid to get in touch, maybe through Twitter, direct messages, DMs, either on my profile or the Trezor Academy profile. And we'll chat. Yeah, it's best to do it in person, but also we can have a call and find out.
There is an irony, but I needed you to explain to my audience because they do ask that a lot on the comment sections.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about don't trust, verify, but then we're talking about privacy, anonymity. Can you expand on that?
In what sense do you mean?
I mean, like spending, engaging, networking.
Okay. Yeah, privacy. So me personally, I haven't been on a Bitcoin exchange since 2018. I used to like buy some Bitcoin on an exchange and provided all kinds of personal data. I think it's quite a bad idea
Yeah.
nowadays to do that.
Uh-huh.
We've seen a lot of attacks, physical attacks on Bitcoiners in France recently because that personal data leaked.
Mhm.
And what it means when the data from an exchange leaks, it means that the potential criminals get your full details. They know your name, they know your address, and they know how much you hold. And if you hold it yourself, if you, like, for example, withdrew to self-custody or have it still on an exchange, doesn't really matter that much because they will just, start torturing you or whatever, and you will give it away. So it's very risky to have that personal information somewhere out there connected to your name. So the way I recommend people approaching Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, no KYC. So earning Bitcoin is a great private way to get Bitcoin, or meeting fellow Bitcoiners at Bitcoin meetups, maybe like Trezor Academy. We also have there's a Czech project called Vexel. It's VEXL.it, I believe, is the website, and that's we sometimes call it like a Tinder for Bitcoiners, because it's a way for you to meet fellow Bitcoiners with the intention to exchange cash for sats, cash for Bitcoin. So just check it out, Vexel. It's sort of not active everywhere, but we're trying to spread it. Or there's other like local peer-to-peer networks, like there's Huddle as well. And then like using Bitcoin privately, Lightning Network is a great way to pay privately. If you do on-chain transactions, you should be a little bit cautious about like what you're doing, because if, for example, you hold a UTXO, like a balance of, let's say, 1 Bitcoin, like a very large amount, and you pay someone from that balance, they will see what your balance is if you do an on-chain transaction. So you don't want to buy like a coffee on-chain from a balance with 1 Bitcoin, because that shop will see that you hold a substantial amount of Bitcoin, which can be very risky to you. So use Lightning Network for that. That's better.
Then something that I love us to explore is that when you talk about building, I know you've built Trezor, it's been a journey, but then the more you build, you must get some people who are negative about whatever you're building, right? Maybe some are saying, "Oh, whatever that you're doing," maybe from the start.
Okay.
Yeah. How did you take that, and how can somebody who needs to start something similar pass through that?
We don't really see that much negativity, and if we do, just ignore it.
Just ignore it.
I mean, if you know that what you're doing is valuable, and it just resonates with your values, you just ignore the haters. Of course, if you're successful and you're well known, there's always going to be haters, like in whatever you do. Whether it's like art, business, or non-profit initiatives. So but usually, like if you do like what you feel, and you do the best, then like the positive feedback is much greater, and especially the positive feedback from people you respect. Like for me, that's, for example, Herman Vivier from Bitcoin Academy. When he tells me that our Trezor Academy documentary that we are just launching is good and he really likes it, that outweighs like any random dudes on Twitter with negative comments, because he's living that life. He's actually building a Bitcoin circular economy, and in our documentary we try to like capture why Bitcoin matters for Africa. And when Herman says this is the way to do it, then it's a great like a medal of honor for me, or a stamp of approval. And that matters the most.
And what advice would you give educators who wants to start educating Bitcoin in their communities?
So first of all, when you're like explaining concepts to people, you should know like much more than what you're explaining, right? Because there's going to be questions, and you should always like that level of knowledge should be like much deeper than what you're trying to instill on people. So that they understand you really know what you're talking about. So yeah, listen to Bitcoin podcasts, read Bitcoin books, use Bitcoin, on-chain Lightning, be familiar with hardware wallets, maybe be familiar with mining through like BitX or mini miners, research what Gridless is doing, just follow the community, be part of the community, and then teaching comes very naturally to you, because if you're passionate about it and if you're very deep like in that topic, then usually you want to share what you know and what you feel with others. So the best teachers are those that don't do it like for money or for a position, but that just do it for the love of the knowledge that they possess.
So the biggest thing, community, is that let us build capacity, let us build knowledge. So in as much as we are doing whatever we are doing, let us build capacity. So something that I love us to conclude with is that we'd always ask our guests is that if you are in a position to create a universal rule that would cover
universal rule,
what will it be?
So I believe one of the best time-tested universal rules is the so-called golden rule. Meaning, don't do unto others what you wouldn't like to be done to you. I think as a freedom lover, as a libertarian, that's what captures like that philosophy. If you don't want to be beaten, don't beat people. If you don't want to be stolen from, don't steal from people. If you don't want to be lied to, don't lie to people. I think that's one of the best like moral principles that we have.
So the biggest lesson is that do something that you love somebody to do for you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So generous with your time, and I do really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to tapping to Trezor Academy. Guys, if you have any question, we are going to put the links. And something that I'm grateful for is that my community has been asking Trezor Academy. So I hope we are bringing something to you. That is something that I really hope. Thank you so much.
I think we will. Thank you very much, Alphonse. Thank you.
Thank you.